morning. Today I welcome you guys to the lecture of sustainable manufacturing. This is a new course in NPTEL and probably a course that is aimed towards exposing you to the theories and as well as the practical side of how to achieve sustainable and green manufacturing. This course to a large extent is a flavor of engineering plus management, and we will actually start today's the entire course by an introduction to what's a production and the activities that are related to production and different aspects of manufacturing, and then we will talk about the inputs, outputs, and what are the steps that can be used to convert manufacturing into green manufacturing, sustainable manufacturing, so that the entire value addition of manufacturing becomes eco-friendly, more sustainable, more efficient, and with utilizes minimum energy, less materials, etc. So, without wasting much time, let us get into the first module today, which is the basics of production. And I am Dr. Deepak Philip, I am from IIT Kanpur. So, let us take first example, and we will start with few examples. So, if you talk to any person who is part of the production or manufacturing, the most important thing that they will look into is what to produce and how to produce in the most effective manner and the cost effective manner. We will talk about that. So, here is an example of an agency called Anheim's International House of Pancakes. Pancakes is like the European and American version of Indian dosa, and this is one of the biggest breakfast joints where a lot of people go there for breakfast. They make somewhere close to 7,000 pancakes, about 5,500 eggs, 10,000 pound of pork, orange juice, about 1,000 pots of coffee, 10 cooks work on there to make this happen, and 18 waiters they do serve this. Okay. So, if you look at this, these are to an extent we can call typically these as the raw materials. Okay. The raw materials that are used to create or develop the breakfast, and this you can think about it as the manpower or the human resource, okay, that is used to makes and delivers the pancakes. And what they say is that the average time to assemble the breakfast is 60 seconds. So, when an order comes in, it takes them 60 seconds to manufacture it and or produce it or cook it and give it to you. Here the manufacturing, okay, here instead of the manufacturing or producing or production, the activity here is cooking. Okay. So, we are using raw materials. So, for example, pancake batter plus eggs together might make the pancake. Okay. So, you require a cook for this, and you require a hot oven which would require some energy. So, the course in the later down this course, what we will be looking at is how do we minimize the energy and how do we make this process more green, so that we can produce the same number of pancakes with lesser energy. So, one aim is to produce same quantity while consuming less energy. This is one option. There are other things also. We would also like to minimize the waste, that is part of this. So, here is an example, one example for you, and the credit of this example actually goes to Dr. Jim Hammerly, sorry, not Harley, Hammerly. Another example let us take about is a modern cruise ship. Cruise ship is an example where people take this journey for vacation. It is a big ship like a big floating hotel in which people stay in the rooms, and they have and it goes to all exotic places, expensive. So, if you think about it, a ship typically serves somewhere close to 12,000 meals. These meals will include breakfast, lunch, dinner. Okay. People will have different taste for this breakfast, lunch and dinner, and in that process they would have used there will be different menu or different options for the people to choose from. So, to cook these meals they would require vegetables. These vegetables would be of different type. It can be leafy vegetables, it can be tubers like carrot, beetroot, something like this. It could be onions, chilies, other spices, stuff like that. Then meat and seafood, that is for the, let us say, non-vegetarians. Meat will include, this would be like chicken, pork, etc. Seafood would involve fish, lobster, etc. So, then the dinner rolls are, for example, breads. Okay. So, different type of breads, okay. Eggs, we all know what eggs are, sugar, ice cream. So, these items, the vegetables, meat, all of these together becomes what we call as raw materials, which are used to cook this three different lunch, breakfast, lunch and dinner. And obviously there will be additional resources like cooks, there will be people who serve this, and then there will be people who clean this, okay, etc. So, these are done by human beings, okay, which we also called as the manpower. Then to cook these raw materials to what we call as these different meals, we would require ovens, pans, okay, etc. All of these do consume energy. So, in a cruise ship they are more interested in cooking and serving these meals. If you are talking about a sustainable cruise ship, then what we are talking about it is serve the same number of same quantity. So, we can write it this way: same number of meals with less energy consumption and reduced waste. So, this would be one example of attaining sustainability in the business of a modern cruise ship, which is a luxury business. So, we took both of these examples to give you guys an idea of that sustainability can be bought in any concept. It does not have to be just doing stuff in a manufacturing facility. But yes, mostly we will be in this course focusing on manufacturing facility, which has to do with basic conversion of raw materials into finished goods, which follows this basic unit manufacturing processes, stuff like that. But the philosophies, the thought process, the methods, the processes, the experiments that we do in this class are equally applicable to other industries as well, like a cruise ship or a restaurant, stuff like that. Hopefully you guys have a clear idea of this, and then we will further go down. Other examples where these principles can also be applied, and other than manufacturing, is McDonald's. They have multiple restaurants. I mean, this is all data. This is about 2010 data, I believe. This number is much larger now. About 30,000 restaurants in 121 different countries. People know what McDonald's is. They kind of provide the same type of food wherever you go in the world. If you ask for French fries, then the French fries from McDonald's are supposed to taste exactly the same, all those kind of things. So, this is an example of a standardized global fast food service provider. So, they are the business of fast food, but the thing is, what McDonald's has done is they have done what you call as a standardized fast food. So, wherever you go, you are supposed to get the same exact type of food anywhere in the globe. Another example is Federal Express, most popularly known as FedEx. I think you might have heard about this term. It's one of this kind of organizations are called 3PL, which is called as third party logistics companies, and their main job is to collect packages from one person or the origin and then deposit at the destination. So, it's like postal services, but much more different than postal services, because postal services they have limitation to ship. So the postal services are mostly into shipping letters and other stuff. Here they ship almost everything. They ship things like organs, they ship stuff like animals, whales or orca whales or stuff like that. So, it's pretty much a logistics providing facility, and they ship across the globe. So, the idea here is that how can you make that standardized? So, one example in the Federal Express, what they do is, like for example, let's say let's think about it this way. Let's say here is the origin. Let's call this as the origin where the package is originating, and it has to be shipped to this place. This is the destination, and let's say the road travels like this, and these are two major intersections. So, the one way the FedEx would do this is, they will, let's say here is a traffic light and here is also traffic light, here is a traffic light, there is no traffic light here. So, Federal Express might think about it, okay fine, which way I should ship? Should I go like this? Should I go like this? Or second option is, should I go like this? Then it will depend upon the time of each light, traffic, etc. So, if you find that this stretch of road is, if let us say heavy traffic, that means if we travel by this road, this particular road, it might result in more fuel consumption. Whereas, if this road is taken, it is less congested, so you might consume less fuel. So, you accomplish the same, the delivery of this packet, this is a packet that is to be delivered from origin to destination with a less fuel being consumed. Then you accomplish the same operation, but this is more of a sustainable, or let us call this, instead of sustainable, let us call this as a green approach, because you are consuming less fuel or less fossil fuel. And let us talk about petrol or diesel. Okay. One of them we are consuming less. So, that means our impact on the environment is also less. So, hence, so the same thing can be done in a much more fuel efficient manner. All right. Another example of this is also about the famous Aramark delivering about 1 lakh meals or 100,000 meals per day for athlete staffs and everything in the Beijing Olympics. Okay. So, that is another example. So, anyway, I can say that in all possible cases, okay, we can come up with something better. Like even in the case of us, I forgot to mention in this case of McDonald's, they always look at, can we create the same French fry with less energy. This is a big question. So, if you could change the process in such a way that the oil temperature is not that high and you can actually reduce the energy consumption, then yes. Another option is also that after cooking, if the amount of oil that is wasted at the end of the day, if that can be reduced, that is also another example of a green initiative. So, all these organizations spend energy on to these kind of activities. So, these broad examples give you different waypoints in which where you can also apply the same principles of sustainability that we study, like in a third party logistics company or a global standardized fast food, or you are also about serving meal in a Olympic event which happens once in a specific time period, all those kind of things. Before getting into the details of this, we also need to be very particular about the terminologies that we are using in this, because many of the words that we use in this course might appear different and new to you. So, the first word term that we need to look into is production or operation. There is a subtle difference between these two phrases, but for the time being we will take them as the same, and then later down the road we will split them into, we will split the hair in that case. When somebody says I am in the business of production or operation, what they are intrinsically meaning is it's a transformation process. Okay, you are transforming inputs. Okay, so transforming inputs to outputs. Okay, what are the inputs? The inputs can be materials, machine, money, methods, management, all those kind of things. These are the inputs. These inputs are inputs to the system or a machine or a factory, doesn't matter whatever is the input of, and then that gets translated to output. Output can be goods. Goods are like products. So, these are tangible items, physically understandable, touchable, or services. Services are intangible. Okay, we will see what are some of the examples of intangible services. For example, in a hospital provides a service, they don't give you a good, and the service there is that you are sick. So, if you think about a hospital, it is a service. So, the service is that in a hospital, sick, that is the input. Okay, the output is cured person. So, the transformation process there is curing or wellness, we can think, or treatment, we can think about all those kind of things as the transformation process. So, you are transforming a sick person to a cured person or a healthy person. Okay, you can think about it as a healthy person. Okay, that is the output. So, that concept is what we call as a service. Whereas, if you take steel and then using the transformation process you make a car, then this is actually called as production. Okay, and this is not a service, this is a good. Okay, car is a good. Good means it's a tangible stuff. So, one of the important thing is almost all the businesses in the world wants the transformation process to be efficient. So, efficiency, we typically define it as, how do we define this? It is typically output over input. So, if you want the efficiency to be increasing, okay, so then either, so if you think about it, output by input is the efficiency. If you keep the input the same, the way to increase the efficiency would be increase the output, or if you want to keep the output the same, then one way to increase efficiency is decrease the input. Okay. So, to a large extent this is the concept that we will be operating upon. Either we maintain the same input and increase the output, or we maintain the same output but decrease the input. So, the idea is this: output is of greater value than the sum of the inputs. So, in a transformation process, when we say think about it as, we will draw in the next diagram, but you have to think that the cost of the steel and the cost of the car, okay, cost of the steel plus the paint, the tires, the salary of the employee, everything put together, these are all going into the transformation process, and the car that comes out, the value of that car should be more than all these inputs that has gone into the system. Okay. So, that is when you say that as an efficient process also. So, the cost is also an aspect of it. So, some of the examples of the transformation process in this regard is, for example, when we talk about a physical transformation process, when you are taking a physical any raw material, let us take that as an example, and we transform into a physical product, okay, transform to a physical product, then that is typically called as manufacturing. Okay. So, when we talk about green manufacturing, this is the process that we are talking about. We are talking about physical, a tangible, observable object. Okay. But the same philosophies are also applicable for locational transformation processes, which are typically transportation or warehouse. So, transportation, as I showed you, it could be a third party logistics transformation or locational transportation, or it can be warehouse within which. So, if you think about in a warehouse like a big building, and you have stored something here and you moved this to another location. So, this movement using a can be a man pushing a cart, or it could be a forklift, or it could be a crane, okay, many options. So, this also involves energy. So, the locational changes, locational transformation, changing the location of a product or a good is also another transformation process, which all since we are expending energy there also, the concepts of sustainable manufacturing is also applicable in this regard. Similarly, exchange, retail, this is also important because here also the concepts is applicable. For example, if you go to a big retail shop, okay, then obviously there is a facility that consumes energy, it has cleaning stuff, wastage, etc. So, there are multiple ways in which retail facility, where you think that okay, you are just buying things in a big, like for example, if you go to a big bazaar shop, okay, we can still find a ways to operationalize the product, operationalize the or come up with a better way of doing it, so that the same output can be reached by less amount of input, or for the same input more output can be reached. Okay. Healthcare, again the same thing. You go to a hospital to get well, and hospital uses medicines, oxygen, electricity, okay, then consumables, non-biodegradables. There are quite a lot of things that are used by a hospital. Now, if you talk about the sustainability in healthcare, then we might be looking into minimizing the input of usage of these to derive the same output of a healthy person, or we find a way that for the same quantity that we consume, we are able to convert more sick people into healthy person. So, that also is applicable there. Then entertainment, you go for a movie, so movie theatre is an example. Okay. Can we reach the same sustainability? Can we bring the sustainable goals, the green goals into entertainment? Definitely you can do that. Okay. Same way in information or communications, this is also another important thing, because everybody talk about the IT, information technology. So, can sustainability part of the IT? That's one big question. One example is the electronic waste. How do we calculate that? Or for the same amount of storage, can you store more information for the same quantity or the same storage space? Then you are minimizing the amount of usage of hard disk. So, like then that means that much of electronic waste is reduced. So, electronic waste reduction is one example. Then another example is paperless system. So, if you go with electronic filing, then you are minimize the usage of paper. You minimize the usage of paper, then you are end up reducing tree cutting. Okay. Once you doing that, then the environmental impact is also less. So, it might not appear directly to you, but yes, there are other impacts within which you are able to use it and sustain things out of that. So, even though the transformation processes can be different, they all can be bound in the same strategic uh, goal of sustainability or eco-friendly or green. We are using these terminologies in exchange. We will define these terminologies in a much better way, clear way later down the road. As of now, we are generally overviewing things. So that's why we are using these terminologies interchanged. But once later down the road, we will clarify this much more better. So the transformation process, as we said earlier, if we diagrammatically think about it, is there are inputs. So there is materials, machines, labor, management, capital. Capital is another way to think about it, is finance or money. Finance is a loose term. Again, let's use the word money, not finance actually, because finance is different actually. So we will use money here. Okay. Labor is also equivalent to man. Okay. And then another thing is, there are many other things, the accessories. Okay. Like if it's in a factory, you are using coolant, tool bed, those kind of things. Okay. Then there is an environment, that's also another aspect of it, or mother nature. That's called mother nature as one part of it. Okay. These are all inputs to the transformation process, and the transformation process delivers what we call as an output, which is a good or a service. Okay. Good, as I said, it's a tangible product. This is intangible. Okay. And in this process, you get what we call as a feedback and requirements, and the feedback and requirements, they go into the transformation process. So to a large extent, this is where you are this loop focuses on managing the transformation process. The management here is, what are we doing in this managing? The main thing that we try to do in this managing is improve efficiency, okay, then reduce waste, okay, then reduce quality defects, or not reduce quality, actually reduce defects, I am sorry, reduce defects, those kind of things. Okay. So the management process do a lot of things, but in that process, some of them will result in making the process more sustainable. Not all of them, some of them. Okay. That's one part of it. What are those things that is part of this course? Some of this feedback and requirements will actually go back to the input. So one example is, the one question here is, can the same product be produced with less quantity of raw material? I will give an example here. So if you think about an aircraft, you have, if you look at an aircraft, you have, let's look at the aircraft from the top view. So here is a fuselage of the aircraft, here is a tail, there is an empennage, and it has two big wings. Okay. You are looking from the aircraft from the top, it is under which the engines are hanging down. Okay. Assume that these are these wings. Okay. So wings of an aircraft, these are typically made of a alloy called duralumin. Okay. And it is typically machined, okay, using flat bed grinders or milling, something like this. Okay. So this alloy, you take the big giant piece of it and then you machine it into shape. So let's say in this process, one of the material that gets used is a coolant. Okay. Typically a mineral oil based coolant which is non biodegradable. Okay. So, there is a non-biodegradable coolant that is used. So, let us say that you are for manufacturing one of this wing, let us say 20 barrels of coolant is required. It will give you one wing. So, one example is if you come up with some changes in this way that this 20 barrels of non-biodegradable mineral oil based coolant can be reduced to 15 barrels, that is a reduction in the input. So, this reduces the input. In that process what happens is you get the same output, okay, of one wing, but with a lesser amount of coolant. Now, how has this become sustainable? The sustainability is the fact that you have eliminated the need of 5 barrels of, so 5 barrel of non biodegradable mineral oil based coolant eliminated. So, then that is a sustainable initiative. That means you have impacted the environment in a good way, so that the adverse impacts of disposing of this coolant on the environment has been reduced. Also, you have helped the process that because you only require 20 more, only require 15 not 20. So, in the manufacturing, the people who manufacture these coolants, they can also, they do not need to produce 20 barrels anymore, they only need to produce 15 barrels, and because of that their requirements, energy requirements, manpower requirements, everything come down. And in that process what happens is, so you have an aircraft manufacturer from whom they are procuring coolant. So, in a reduction in requirement here, requirement reduction here results in a manufacturing reduction. So, it is not just one, the effects are not just instantaneous, the effects can be felt higher up the chain, higher up the value chain, higher up the supply chain of the system. Okay. So, you have reduced the usage of coolant, you saved money here, and you became a sustainable process in manufacturing the wing. And the same time the coolant company does not need to produce that much of the non-biodegradable coolant. So, they have reduced their inputs, and that process they are also become more sustainable. So, I hope that how we end up impacting the inputs and as well as the outputs. And one other thing also is that sometimes certain information from the transformation process in itself will go back to the input scenario, so that you can reduce some of the utilization. So, at the end of the day the same aim is the same, either increase the output with the same level of input or maintain the same level of output for decreased level of input. That is the two things that we try to do as part of this exercise. So, we will get into the next concept called production management. The production management is terminology that we require to know. Now, this point is we are starting to move closer towards manufacturing. So, the production management to a large extent, the term is related to planning and controlling of production activity. So, here we talk about production activity, then we talked about production and operations. We will describe it later down the road, but production to a large extent is related to goods, or in other ways we are in the process of manufacturing tangible products, goods. Okay. So, the all planning and controlling of the goods manufacturing activity or production activity is what we call as a production management. And most of what is production management? What is the aim of the production management? It is to produce the right product or take necessary steps, do sufficient action to produce the right product in terms of type and quantity. So, produce the right type of product, produce the right quantity of product. So, the type and the quantity are two important things as part of this, and with the right quality. Quantity is one, this is where we are talking about the numbers. Type is the design or form, all those kind of things. Quality is whatever the customer wants. So, quality is specified by the customer, and then it should be done at the right time, or we should be doing it in the timely fashion or deliver at the promised time. That is one aspect, and with acceptable cost. So, that means it should be acceptable in a sense it is affordable. Okay. That is the important aspect. So, the customer should be able to, whom should be affordable? It should be affordable to the customer. That is the idea. So, producing the right product in terms of the type, the design, the quantity, the right number, and with the right quality, meeting the customer specifications in the right time, the promised delivery time is met, and within acceptable cost, or acceptable cost means affordability of the customer. This was the definition given by Westcamper, and it's a very well known, people accept this definition quite a lot. And in our case, what we are trying to do is, in a sustainable manufacturing or sustainable production management, we are trying to do the same thing. All of these things are we trying to do. The main important part is in a sustainable fashion. That is what we are more interested in. Can we do it in a sustainable fashion? And there are multiple types of production as well available, and the strategies, the way you will attain this sustainability depends upon the type of production process that you are going to deal with. So, the major type of production processes are the single production processes, then there is a serial and a batch. Typically, people kind of serial and batch are merged together, okay, and then there is a mass production. Okay. So, single, serial, batch and mass are the 3 different ways. Some people do distinguish between serial and batch, but for the process in our case, for this course, we can consider both of them to be the same or interchangeable systems. Okay. So, we will see what are these type of production processes in detail, and then we will go from there. So, this is an depending upon the type of the production processes that you are using, what is a specific type of production processes you are using, the strategies, okay, the strategies required to make the process sustainable might be different. Okay. Some changes might be necessary, and that we will discuss in detail as we progress. Thank you for the patient hearing. We will continue with the next topic.